Hey, everybody, welcome back to the 148th episode of Taps and Patience, the podcast where one of the hosts knows where Missouri is. I'll let you guys choose which one. It's not me. How do we do an intro? Oh, yeah. I am AJ from Audacity Micro and Subtract Manufacturing, here with Harrison, the knower of Missouri, with Precision Ingenuity.
How are we doing today?
Is that a terrible intro already?
That was a terrible intro, but we should,
course.
Should we answer why I am the knower of the location of Missouri, or do we want to just leave that as like a cliffhanger? Or like,
I mean, that was pretty much the whole story. Is you were like, I'm driving up to Missouri, and I was like, wait, Missouri's south of you, and then we checked the map, and it wasn't. So
yeah, it was just family event in Missouri over the weekend, and I'm exhausted from it. And AJ thought it was below Arkansas, not above.
Little known fact, I grew up in South Africa and Belgium. So while my family is from Indiana, from Indianapolis, in fact, throughout all the time where I was living in other countries, we still owned the same house that my parents are in. And we would go back there every summer and every Christmas. Mm-hmm. But I spent 8 years in the non-American school system, and I definitely missed the like states and capitals portion of my education. So my geography is not good.
Can I ask why you were overseas as a kid? Like, what your family did?
So it was because of my dad and his work. He worked for, was it AT&T at the time? I think it was AT&T at the time. And he only really ever worked for AT&T basically as long as I've been alive. But AT&T changed names a couple times.
Oh, okay.
It might have been Ameritech. I don't remember. But he was browsing around his company's website at one point and saw a job that was a big promotion and was in Belgium. And he went, hey, that might be fun. And so he applied for it, and then he got it. Actually, he did not get it. But then the guy who originally was offered the job had a heart attack and died. And so then we got to go to Belgium. And then we came back for a couple years. And then while he was in Belgium, he kind of got a reputation as like being like one of the people that can solve problems. Mm-hmm. And then in South Africa, they were having issues. They were having lots of issues. One of which being like there were people pulling down phone lines to make wire baskets and stuff out of, and some corruption and some like fuel theft.
Interesting.
And so they were like, how about you go fix that for us? And so then we went to South Africa for 5 years.
Okay. So you were born and raised in the US, and you just traveled afterwards because of your dad's work then.
I was like 0 through kindergarten here, and then like kindergarten through first grade or something in Belgium, and then like second grade through 7th, I think it was, in Africa. And then the rest of middle school and high school. So
okay. Do you travel much these days, or like have you traveled much since then, or whatnot?
I have not been international since then.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Part of that is just it's expensive.
That is true. It is not.
And now I have kids and stuff because, like, I went through school. I graduated high school, and I wasn't going to be traveling to Italy or whatever at that point. And then I went into college, and definitely not traveling internationally. And then I got married and had a kid while still in college, because I was at Purdue for, I think it took me 5.5 years to get my engineering degree. Mm-hmm. And then by the time I graduated Purdue, I had like a 3-year-old. And,
fair enough.
Again, not the ideal time to travel. And then I started a business and had no money. And I haven't flown, I don't think, since I was with the National Guard.
Oh, wow.
So I'm flying to Charlotte this weekend. And that'll be the first time I've been on a plane in like 6 years or something.
So if money was no object, where would you go?
I would probably start, well, okay. If it was just up to me, I would probably do like Rome. I know my wife would rather go to like Ireland or Scotland first, and I would be totally okay with that.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, that'll be fun.
so there's AJ's life story in the first 5 minutes and 19 seconds of the episode.
Not planned, but it's interesting. It's fun. I think you should try to find some time to travel at some point. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Although I don't have kids, so it's a little
it's a
easier
lot
for me.
easier then. I've done a lot of travel this year just within the US.
Yeah.
And apparently that's still going to continue thanks to Mr. Jacob getting married at some point here and possibly the Toolpath Summit. But
you also used to, well, I mean, not used to. It was somewhat recently. You were who were you working with? Was it DSI? Were you going around training? Was it DSI?
It wasn't DSI. It was Next Gen.
Next Gen.
Same idea, different company.
Yeah. You don't do anything with them anymore, right?
I do not. I have traveled around with school a little bit, just within Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a couple times where I've spent a week somewhere doing like an apprentice class.
Mm-hmm.
And that might happen a little bit more here in the near future.
Like I've often thought we had a guy that stopped by the shop who'd been machining for, I don't know, 20, 30 years. And he'd heard about us and he wanted to come see our shop. And just listening to him kind of talk about how things have like gone and grown up, like I really wish I could just be like we got him talking about, he was like in our shop and everything that he saw. And it's like, it got me thinking about going and touring other shops and just wanting to be a fly on the wall on other people's shops. And there's a lot of people both in the Instagram community and just like different shops in general that I would really love to go tour and just hang out for a day.
I mean, this is why when I was on the East Coast, we tried to record as many shop tours as we could.
Yeah.
And at some point here, like when I asked people like, hey, when I went, hey, this is my route, who's along the route where I can do a shop tour? Mm-hmm. There was like 45 people in Ohio. So at some point I might do the Grand Ohio tour and try to get as many of those shops as I could. Maybe see if I can convince Saunders to let us come by, go to HGR. But there were too many trips in Ohio. We would have spent 2 weeks in Ohio traveling around.
Did you do that on the Instagram, just like Instant Machinist, or on our Discord, or both?
I think it was just our Discord.
Oh my goodness.
And I maybe said it on the podcast, actually. That's where I got a lot of responses.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And apparently everybody's in Ohio. I bet they don't know where Missouri is.
Fair enough. Well, we've kind of gone through travel and life stories, so
I guess what have you been up to?
I guess the next thing to talk about is the weather.
It's so at the moment.
Yeah, we had that big storm that the weathermen had been talking about, and they predicted anywhere from like half an inch to 37 feet, and I think we ended up somewhere around 4 or 5 inches. So wasn't a ton, but it wasn't nothing. So
we got a solid 12 inches through the standard means. And then just because of where we are, like being across from a bunch of big fields, we got some crazy drifting in places.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
There's portions like where my car was parked. My car was parked in the like our front little driveway circle. And on one side of that car, like the leeward side, I think it's the term, there was a solid like 2.5 feet of snow.
Oh, wow.
The back side was fairly clear, but the front side was just deep.
So, you didn't probably have a lot of parts you were working on at that time?
I had one job that I was finishing up.
So go ahead.
I try to do, when I'm teaching, I try to do at least one job because I only have a couple hours every morning. And if I can get one job a week done, then I'm in a pretty good shape. But yeah, so I had 30 little Ultim parts. They weren't bad, except there was like a long reach 1/32 inch tool. It was cutting a 1/4 inch deep, which is just Tuesday for me at this point.
Gotcha. We had a lot of our packages and whatnot delayed and shipments delayed. And that really affected a lot of stuff. Like we had one job that was due by the end of the week, and our material shipment was supposed to come in on like Monday, and it still hasn't shown up yet. So it just messed everything up. And it was supposed to be done. The parts were due on Thursday. So we're behind on those, but there's nothing we can do.
I ordered some titanium that was coming from California, and it was supposed to be 2-day shipping. It made it to Tennessee in like a day. And I think it's lost in Tennessee at this point. The tracking info hasn't updated in like a week.
Yep.
Which is a little bit of a bummer, but those were just carabiners, fortunately. Sorry, Scott, I tried.
Although my internet did get fixed. So this week. So from last week. And funny
Did we
story
talk about the internet last week at all?
Yeah, well, we talked. We might have mentioned it because my internet was kind of wigging out. But yeah, no, it's working good this week. And it was funny because when I got the new modem, my old modem actually was fine. It was the power supply that died. But it died in such a way that the unit would power on. It just didn't function right. And when I got the new one in, I just for kicks and giggles plugged in the new power supply because it looked different than the old one. And it just worked. So I was a little upset about that, but I guess I got a backup one if something else happens. So
yeah, it's like when my Tormach was being weird at probably the beginning of last year, and like we couldn't figure it out. Like it just kind of kept going downhill, and eventually I just called Tormach, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's definitely just your power supply going bad."
Yeah,
like power supply issues are so weird and flaky and hard to troubleshoot. Well, they're easy to troubleshoot if you think to just replace the power supply. But if your mill is acting weird, you're not going to think it's the power supply for the controller is your first thought.
Yep. Well, now that we're sufficiently into the early stages of our episode, we could probably talk a little bit about some machining stuff.
Because this said something about long reach end mills.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So apart from the weather, let's see what else. Oh, I remember. So the guitar part people. I mentioned that they were starting to do pretty good, right? Last week?
Yeah.
Did I? Okay. Well, this week or last week, after that episode, I've gone back in and I've started working on optimizing the program. And it's kind of interesting because Titans of CNC put out a video about using a threading tool to cut the threads and to cut the hole and the threads all with one tool. And I've known about those. I've just never used one, but I saw the video on it, and ironically, that would work on our guitar part. And so we decided to get one and try it out. And it ended up eliminating 2 tool changes. And then it allowed me to completely restructure how I was machining the part. And all told, it took a 15 and a half minute program down to 13 and a half. So I saved 2 minutes, which on a production job is insane because I was able to reshuffle things around because there was a couple tools because the drilled holes were on a contour. I had to do them I had to break up some tools and recall up the same tool in different locations. And so the combination of that with the new end mill made it go way faster. So
nice.
I was very happy about that.
Did you get the OSG ones or
OSG? Yep.
Okay. Are those the ones that Dylan talks about too?
I don't know. This is the first time I've used them, and I don't remember what brand he's talked to. Although I have been listening to some of the older episodes from Dylan, just catching up on. They're actually re-listening to some different ones just to kind of. I forget what problem I was facing, but I was trying to see if I remembered him talking about it at one point. So,
Within Tolerance is a very re-listenable podcast.
Oh yeah. Dylan does great work over there. So, but yeah,
he knows where Missouri is.
He probably does. But yeah, other than that, just I feel like we're in a stage now where we're incredibly busy and we have a lot of parts on order. But I've had a medical part that's been kicking my butt here recently, and a combination of that and the snow has pushed us way behind where we should be right now. Like I should have a lot of these jobs done, and it's pushed us back enough that it's starting to affect our cash flow just a little bit.
A part, a new medical part, or a new issue with the old medical parts?
It's a new medical part that we are prototyping, and we got to get our first article inspections done. And it has a feature at the bottom. It's a really simple part. All of the tight tolerances can be done with like reamers for the most part. But one of the holes that it calls out has a 60-degree included taper at the bottom of it. It's like a 6x D hole. And so we ordered a custom drill for it. And we ordered 4 of them. And I blew through all 4 trying to get it to work. And they're a 6-week lead time. And I'm already 2 weeks
behind.
A bummer. And I'm already 2 weeks behind on these because of stuff. And so thankfully, the medical people, this is not an urgent part for them. So technically, I think they said, if I keep having problems all the way up until May, then it'll become a problem. But hopefully I'll have it solved a lot sooner than that. But it's really frustrating because my iteration period is 6 weeks at a time. So I could very easily catch up to that if we can't get this solved. And so one idea that I talked to an apps guy about that I think I'm going to try to do, and if anyone has a good supplier or good vendor suggestions for custom drills with custom features machined into them, it's a
tools.
It's a pH 17.4 material, not hardened. And the hole diameter is 0.17, roughly 6x D. It might be 5x D. It's 5 to 6x D, somewhere in that range, with a 30 degree, 60 degree included taper at the bottom. So 30%.
AB Tools, and what are they? The other carbide company. They were just on the Chips and Tips podcast.
So
carbide cutting tools.
Carbide cutting tools. There was one company.
Those will nail it.
The one the apps guy recommended was one which I hadn't heard. It was like Valley Tool. And apparently they're associated with Harvey somehow. And like they make some of their tools for Harvey or something, which is interesting. So that's not the ones we're using, but that was one a different apps guy recommended that we talked to. And don't quote me on if they do stuff for Harvey, but I think that's who he said that they did them for, which is kind of cool. We were using one that our local sales rep found, and I think they were called Jewelry something, but jewel cutting tools or something like that. And their drill bit that they made for us had like a 45 degree helix wrapped around, and it was like
very steep,
like very shallow. Like it wrapped around a whole bunch. Like I'm used to seeing like a really like gradual.
Okay.
So
that's what I meant. I don't know if steep is the right word.
Oh,
very tight.
Very tight.
Maybe a better word.
Yeah. Very tight helix, and the webbing on it is extremely thin. And it made me very nervous to use it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Apparently it's because we wanted through coolant on the tool because of the depth, and whoever they get their carbide through only offers it in a high helix configuration. And so they have to match that angle to grind to not go through the internal bores.
It's wild to me that the carbide already comes with the drill flutes in it.
Not with the drill flutes, with the internal channels, the through spindle coolant.
Okay.
So
yeah, I know that. I was trying to figure out why
they have to.
Are the TSC channels helixed?
Yes. They go down the.
See, that's also wild to me. How do they do that?
Comes out as a paste, is how it's done. So, like when they do the carbide, I believe it comes out as a paste, and they rotate it.
Center it.
Yeah, and then they center it, and so I believe that's how it's done. Someone from the podcast will correct us if we're wrong, but I believe that's how it's done.
Yeah, Dylan might know. Not that Dylan, other Dylan, because he works at a cutter grinder.
Yeah, if feel free to
I
weigh
always
in.
assumed they EDM'd those, but
No,
I know nothing. So,
I can tell you from the ones that have broken that the channels follow the helix.
huh, the more
So
you know.
they said if I had ordered ones without the through spindle coolant, that they could do less of an angle and have a thicker core. And I asked them if they would make them without it, and they said for that depth they wouldn't recommend it.
Interesting.
So they wanted to see if they could make the through spindle work. So my other suggestion that was given to me that I'm kind of leaning towards is using a regular go drill that I
Hmm.
use for everything to drill the hole all the way down to the 30-degree to the section where it turns into that tapered bottom, and then getting a custom chamfer mill and plunging that last little bit with the two flute chamfer mill. So
Would it even need to be custom?
to be able to do the full, if I'm using it like a drill and I'm just drilling straight down, it would just to make sure it matches the diameter of the hole. If I were to actually try to mill it, I thought about milling it, but all of the tools that I would need to mill to be able to do it the right way, I think I ended up having to. It ended up being like a 8 to 15 times D extension to use anything off the shelf
Yeah.
that could do it. And so at that point, I'm using really long, tiny tools to try to machine that bottom taper. And this is going to be a production job when it's all said and done. And while if I was just doing this as a one off, I'd be okay doing that. I really want to get it figured out for being able to run these because I'm going to be running, once I get everything figured out, like 200 to 300 a month. So I want to make sure I have something that I can not take a ton of time on.
Yeah. I mean, you can still do one prototype or whatever with,
I got it.
surfacing it in or something silly.
Yeah, but those are going to be the first articles, and I want those to match the production units.
Yeah, that's fair. You don't want to, change your process after the first articles.
Yeah. So whatever process I have, I want to make sure it gets approved and not change it after the fact. So, anyways, so
Fun.
fighting that's always fun. Everything else is going good. I took a job where we did some milling and on in the lathe. So we were able to do Yamaha shifter drums for like a Banshee. I think I talked about that last week though. So that wasn't this week. I think that was the end of the other week. So trying to think if there's any other parts. We have a lot of cool parts coming up. And I'm quoting a lot of jobs with a lot of potential, just which is a whole long series of stages. So we'll see how that goes.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you? Anything else for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of Audacity, I had that one job. It was 30 of these glass filled Ultim parts. I don't know, they kind of had a knob on one side and then like a little ledge. And then that ledge had a deep little groove in it. So they were 3 operations. I was originally planning on doing it with the not a fifth axis because I could have easily done 2 of the operations in the not a fifth axis and then stuck it in soft jaws to just finish off the backside. I did not order the correct size material to be able to stick it out from the vise far enough to get access to the second side that I needed. And so I had to kind of scramble and, refactor all of the code to work with soft jaws. And I ran into some issues on the second operation where there just wasn't much meat to hang on to, and there was not very much to reference the part vertically. And I'm not sure if the part was tipping on me occasionally or if I was getting it in there gollywoggle to begin with. It was very hard to tell because it was kind of buried underneath a hat. But really the solution to that was all I did was I just moved the part down like 50 thou or 100 thou into the soft jaws. So just the bare minimum was hanging off. And just the first time I ran the part, the machine did a whole lot of self-clearancing on those soft jaws, but it was the maximum amount of material that could possibly be left. Yeah. And then also there was the part was like rounded on one side and square on the other. And the soft jaw was, clamping around that. And I believe my rounded side was a little bit undersized, or maybe there was a little bit of inconsistency in the parts where sometimes it was undersized. And I think the rounded jaws, as they were clamping in, or the rounded portion of the jaws was pushing the part back or sometimes off skewed. And I ended up just switching it from being round to a rectangle. So I just kind of had to push it up against there. And it was really fiddling, really annoying to load. But my reliability went up from like a 25% scrap rate to basically zero after that. And it was pretty smooth sailing from there. I ran those single piece flow, and I'm really glad I did with all these issues I was running into. I ran them single piece flow with 3 different vices in the machine. So I would put in my op1 vice, run op1, take it out. I already had an op2 vice loaded, ready to go. Put that in, hit cycle start, removed the op1 part and got it, ready for the next vice. And then, when they finished op2 came out, I loaded op3 and then loaded the finished one from op1 into the op2 vice. And so
were you running
loaded all the way through?
So you're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, basically the whole time.
It would have been much faster had I had multiple row points on that table, which is maybe the next thing I need to figure out. But I was able to catch those issues right away. Like if I had made all 30 of those parts, I would have been out of material and in trouble. So I probably lost 2 hours on this job or something because of doing it with that single piece flow. But it also saved me probably 10 hours and extra material.
Fair enough.
And subtract. So we had a major subtract software release where I had to figure out where it says the version now because it moved. We are version 1.3. And
so when you say subtract software, is this a website or is this an actual application? And is it something that for the guys making your parts or for the people ordering your parts?
So this is SERP. This is our Subtract ERP. It is not customer facing. It is not yet vendor facing, but eventually will be.
Okay.
So
it's internal.
It's internal, yes. It's our job tracking software.
Gotcha.
And we also use it for quoting. So the way the workflow works is I go to quotes, I hit new quote, I drag in the step files and the drawings, and say this, tell SERP this is aluminum plus or minus 5 thou, 12-day lead time, any other notes that needs to go in there. And then I go over to Toolpath, I upload the model there. Eventually those two will be linked automatically. I upload the model to Toolpath, I get the cost estimate from Toolpath using our template. I copy paste that number into SERP. And then there are some additional quoting steps in SERP. Number of threaded holes, tolerance, complexity, risk factor, all of that stuff, a lead time, all of that is dealt with in SERP. Then I hit give me a quote, and it generates a PDF of a quote, which I then go into Gmail and I attach that quote to the email and fill out a little pre-filled blurb we have and then send that. And then from there, it's basically it might as well just be Airtable or whatever else where we could just hit, this is the shop assigned. This is it's just kind of press the buttons through. Oh, it does generate our POs to our shops as well. Okay. It does do that.
And one thing I don't think I caught was, is this a web-based or is this an actual application?
It is a web-based application.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I go to, I don't know if Jacob wants me to say the URL,
Oh,
but
you
I go to the URL
yeah.
that is not subtractmanufacturing.com, which is where you go if you want parts.
Gotcha.
But okay, so that we've had that working for a little while. The big news on this one is it is starting to do the emails. Right now, nothing is automated, but you can send emails directly from SERP. And pretty soon here, when I press the send quote button, I'm no longer going to have to go to Gmail and copy paste everything in. It will just send the quote.
Oh, that'd be nice.
And then if the customer responds, I will have that response in the job thread inside SERP.
Okay. That'd be cool.
Right now, the handling the emails is one of the most time demanding parts of the job, because over the course of the job there's potentially a DFM email, which I guess that we'll still have to write. There's the quote email, which we're writing right now, but that can go away. There's the order confirmation, there's the here's how you pay email. There's the hey, you paid email. There's the your parts are done and here's your tracking email. And then there's supposed to be follow-up emails, but we're bad at those. And so we tend to just send the parts and not follow up. And that's my fault, because that's supposed to be my job, but I'm bad at it. I don't even know where Missouri is. You can't trust me to send an email.
Well, okay. Okay. Go ahead and finish your spiel, and then I have something for that might help you.
But that will all probably in version 1.3.1 all be automated.
Well, that basically answers that question. But one thing that I have started doing on my phone for remembering stuff, because I'm also horrible at remembering stuff, is I have started using the reminders app on my phone. And it just set up a time to have it beep me to remind me when I need to do something. And I just schedule that thing. And I swear that I have like 15 to 20 reminders set at all times for like remembering to do different things. And it is so nice to get that information out of my head and not to be like worried that I forgot something. It'll be like, call this customer, or, fix this next time you're in the shop, or whatever it is.
Can't just easily filter by how many quotes we sent in January. But would you so for every quote that doesn't come back, we should also send a follow-up email, which we're also not doing. Would you set a reminder for every single one?
Yeah. So I just use my phone. Like I'll just click the little button and say, hey, set a reminder to, hey, phone AI thing, set a reminder to email or follow up on this customer on this date at this time if I haven't received an email by then. And then it'll just go into my phone, and then that's particular. You can set like a day and time. I like to set day and time. I haven't done it where I just say the day because I don't know when it's going to actually go off. So I'll try to pick like a common time, like 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or something like that. And then I'll just get all these reminders at that time. And then what's nice about it, doing it on my phone that way, is that they will not leave I have them set to high priority. They will not leave my front lock screen until I check them off. And they will persist there and bug me. So every time I look at my phone, they will be there until I say I have done that task. Because that's the other thing that can happen, is that I'll look at my phone, I'll acknowledge the notification, and then I forget about it and I don't do it. But making them a high priority, they will stay on my screen until I do them. So.
Yeah, that would just drive me too insane. And then I would start ignoring them, and then they would still never happen.
Because unless I check them off, they will persist. And if it's annoying and I don't want to do it at that time, you need to reschedule it, and then it'll go off your screen. But then it'll at least remind you again later.
Yeah. We sent 30 quotes in January. And admittedly, some of those are like two versions of the same quote, like different quantities or whatever. But I don't know. It's just a lot of reminders in my phone.
It is, but I mean, honestly, 30 is not too bad. And if it helps you get more jobs and more customers,
That's fair.
like there's you're not going to find a solution that doesn't like because it's going to require your involvement to follow up. You're not going to any solution that you have is not going to do an automated one. The only thing that could fix that is if you could build something into SERP that has an auto follow up if you
Yes.
haven't got a reply back.
Yes.
And that could work. I just don't know enough about how your system works to you
So
don't have that personal touch. It'll just be automated.
I believe the current plan is that, except maybe the like, hey, here's your payment link, and hey, here's your order confirmation. But like all the emails, other than the just straight notifications, they will still be handwritten, and there will be an email queue. There will be it's labeled action items right there, and so every morning you go on, you open your action items, and you can go down them. We are also in talks with the possibility of bringing on a salesperson.
Okay.
And then I just wash my hands with it because I am really bad at sales. We have found out. Not AJ's strength. So
well,
I'm tackling this in two different ways.
Yep. I would still recommend if you have stuff that you need to remember, even if you don't go as crazy as I do with it, that you do something, because I am very bad about forgetting things. And so like the two most used features on my phone these days for work is the reminders app and the stopwatch, because I feel like there's constantly something in the shop that I need to remember to do. And if it's something that I have to do that day and I know when it's going to be done, I'll just set a stopwatch. And if I have
You mean like an alarm timer?
No, well, yeah, I guess that would be.
Stopwatches count up.
Yeah.
It's how long did I not do this thing?
I feel like my phone calls it a stopwatch. Maybe it doesn't. I'm kind of curious now how it does it.
I use Obsidian for my to-do list, which has gotten rather long and crazy. Yeah.
It calls it timers, not alarms. So I'll set a timer. I don't know why I said stopwatch, but
we don't need to beat with a dead horse.
Yeah. Well, I do use the stopwatch too, because I was using that. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I was using that all last week to track how much time I was saving whenever I was making changes to the program for the guitar parts. So I was using my stopwatch a bunch last week, but primarily I'll set my timer. And that's how I've not, knock on wood, flooded the shop in a very long time, is that I will set it. And it's become common practice for anyone that's in the shop. Anyone that's in the shop, if you turn the coolant on to fill up a machine, you are required to set an alarm on your phone. And so far, no one has flooded the shop. It's not the best solution. Ideally, you would have a timer built into the actual system, but for the time being, it hasn't been an issue.
Product idea for somebody listening: build us a coolant fill timer. Like, all it needs is like a couple different buttons that maybe you can program. Maybe they're static, I don't know, but like a 5-minute button, a 10-minute button, 30-second button, whatever. It needs to have like hose pipe in, hose pipe out, and just a solenoid valve.
Yeah.
And maybe add some like indicator light so we can see what mode it's in. Maybe even have a manual override, but like where it stays on, but have it be loud and annoying or something when it's in that mode. And I will buy one or two, and I will help you sell them via podcast and YouTube channel. This needs to exist. Someone do this.
Yeah. I've tried using some of the off-the-shelf ones, and the ones that I've used off the shelf, the valve that they use typically slows down the flow enough that my Venturi style coolant dispensing unit does not work right. So that's why I need something that like allows the full volumetric flow. Otherwise, the valve doesn't work right. Yeah.
But yeah, someone do that, and I will help you. I have done a pretty good job of not flooding the shop recently. That is more because I finally got around to changing how my sink drains, because I have this issue where I don't have like septic or sewer in my shop or whatever. It just kind of goes into a bucket and then that bucket gets pumped down into drainage. And it's only ever really like hand washing water, so it's not bad. But I finally replaced my old pump that I had in there, which was a dumb pump on a timer. I replaced it with a sump pump. And so now if I put a bucket in the sink and then overfill the bucket, it just gets pumped outside. But that doesn't work when it's this cold outside because my tube freezes.
Man.
So I have fixed my issue for 3/4 of the year. And now I'm in danger.
That does remind me of something funny. We did a Walmart delivery before the storm, and it got delayed, and so they delivered some of it late, and they delivered it the night the storm, like right after the storm hit, and it was some glass bottles drinks, and so they all shattered when we got out there and the next day.
Yeah.
I was so bad.
I saw I think it was like a short or something for maybe on YouTube, I don't remember, from, I think it was Marvel Machine. And they had some stock that was left outside. And he had a block of aluminum on his machine, and he read it with the like infrared temperature gun, and it was at -20 Fahrenheit.
Oh my goodness.
Which is like -35 Celsius or something for you Celsius nuts.
That's cold.
It's not an issue I've had, but I could very much see it being a thing. I have had to unload some material out of my truck that I left it overnight and it got snowed on. And nothing will suck heat out of your hands faster than a bar of like frozen aluminum.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's miserable.
That heat conduction does not do you good.
Yeah. See, anything else on Subtract? We're making some BattleBots parts.
Ooh, that'd be cool.
It's not, unfortunately, not going on one of the big 200-pound heavyweight ones, but they're like some BattleBots kits. So those are pretty cool. We have a bunch of big RFQs out right now. Basically, any one of the RFQs will double what we did this month.
Sweet.
So that would be pretty good. And this month, if it weren't for December, which was insane, this month would have been a record for us. So Subtract is doing pretty well. We're getting more and more, like, kind of a wider variety of people reaching out. We had a SAE, like a Baja team.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
Reach out. I think that's probably still waiting to be quoted because I've been gone all day, and Jacob was kind of heading up that one. But our average time to quote has also been really good. There's like occasionally, like Jacob and I will both be gone, or it'll come in at like 1 a.m. But we're not much slower than the people who do instant quoting. So,
yep, good deal. So I think that's about all I got for at least shop updates for now.
Do we go to questions?
Let's do it. Or do you want to do a Patreon plug and then questions?
Oh, yeah, I guess that's part of the questions. We have a Patreon. It is a magical land of good people. If you pay any amount, you get access to our Patreon Discord, which at this point is its own thing. There's a ton of really good community going on there. There are always people in the live chat, like, I don't know, generally 2 or 3 times a day. There'll be like 5 people in there having a conversation. So it's just a really good community of machinists. And I am kind of sorry for putting that behind a paywall. Like, I wish that was a thing that I could make public to everything. But I also think that's the reason that group is so good.
Yeah.
It's because everybody had to commit at least $1 a month to be there. And it just kind of keeps out the riffraff that doesn't actually want to commit anything. So that Patreon Discord is a really good place. Subtract was kind of birthed out of that. I feel like we've had a couple other initiatives kind of birthed out of that. We've hired people out of there. It's been a all-around good place to be. If you, in a second here, we're going to do a Q&A. If you want to participate in that, you can also join the Patreon. Now, there is a free tier, so the Q&A is not paywalled at all. Come join the free tier, and you can ask us very important questions like Jacob has asked us this week, which we'll get to in a second. You're going to want to hear this one. And if you pay us $10 or more, then we'll say your name on the podcast. So, new Patreons: Aaron SK, Chris at CDS Plastics, and Jacob S. And then our $10 a month or more Patreons: Greg at Frogtown Manufacturing, Jacob S, Chris at CDS Plastics, John S, Alex H, Avery M, Joshua Layton Machine, Milan Y, Devin C, Alex at Mill City Roasters. Alex, I just sent somebody to you guys to get coffee, like green coffee. Christian O, Stephen M, Horse Pulverizer Incorporated. I'm going to assume they're incorporated in Missouri. Daniel R, James at Moultrie Made, Ryan Estrada Manufacturing, Austin W, Kyle at Kursk Machine. I wonder how many people skip this portion of the podcast. Devin at Sinister Machine Works, James N, Bennett Prickly Pear Prototypes, Cam S, Shep at Alderson Prototyping, Jacob at Zona Precision, Jason S, Joshua H, Christian Z, Freaky Climber, Prescott at 1Z2Z Systems, Trey V, Alexander B, Scott Design the Everything, Jamie at JSpec Engineering, Chris at Zyke Precision, EJ at Nocturnal Welding, Chris at Thought Bomb Design, and as ever, Jake Brownson. And I failed to mention that the Patreon is largely going to go to getting us to IMTS this year. So we'll get a big Airbnb. We'll fly Harrison over. We'll maybe be able to fly Jacob over. And it'll be, and we'll do a meetup there, which we should probably start organizing. Very high probability that it'll be at the Tormach booth. And probably not the same day as Dylan's meetup, but probably within a day of his. So,
yep,
just put that on your calendar.
Also,
Q&A.
Also, before we do the Q&A, I will say for the Mill City Roasters, I have finished the first bag now. I have one more bag left, and I tried a couple of the like pre-done Keurig cups that we just have lying around before I switch bags, and it made me really sad and want to go back to the first bag. So it's been really like it's ruining me for the prepackaged stuff.
Yeah, just wait until you try like a pour over coffee or espresso. I still need to fix my espresso machine. I haven't gotten around to even opening it up to see what's wrong with it, but I've been relegated to pour over.
It's been good. Like what they say, once you get good coffee, it spoils you for all the rest. There's truth.
Yeah. All right, Jacob, whole 2% or non-fat?
Kind of on the coffee question, kind of.
Kind of on the coffee question.
So, well, I'll start. Ironically, my family got onto a health kit when I was a kid and got rid of milk for a while. And then, so I kind of grew up in the non-dairy milk section. And now, as an adult, I just don't really have a taste for it. So I don't really drink it. Of course, I was never really a big milk person as a kid anyways. But yeah, so I don't really, other than cooking, I don't really drink milk.
Yeah, so my family has this fun habit of developing allergies in our 20s. My brother got both dairy and like nuts. I think my sister dodged it. My dad developed an allergy to shellfish, and I rolled the dairy card. So unfortunately, this has gotten a little bit better over time where I'm not like super lactose intolerant. But for a while there, I was super lactose intolerant. And so I stopped drinking milk. I could get away with a little bit of dairy now, but I definitely could not do like a glass of milk. So I do cashew milk in my coffee.
I will say, whatever the coffee creamers, the flavored coffee creamers you can get, I like my coffee a white girl bitch. And so whatever flavor those are, 2% whole milk, non-fat, I don't know. They're good. That's where I get my dairy.
They're like a little bit of cream and like a whole bunch of hydrogenated oil or something like that.
Okay. Fair enough.
I like mochas. Mochas are my go-to coffee, which is chocolatey coffee. And yeah, I don't know.
All right.
I'm not a purist either. All right, Joshua Lane Machine. Thank you for your input on my question last week. It was very helpful. I don't remember what it was anymore. I'm sorry. It's been a week. I already know the machine that I'm buying. It's a used Sile X7 with an LNC controller. Oh, I know this machine. 12 tool ATC, silver CNC fourth axis. I believe this is the machine Toolpath has right now. I'm tooling up right now. There are so many options for BT30 holders. Is there a huge difference in quality between the cheap stuff on Amazon or AliExpress and the brand names like Maritool or RegoFix? And is the difference worth the price?
So I would never touch an Amazon tool holder or an
Yeah.
AliExpress with a 10-foot pole. The cheapest that I will typically go is like the Haas branded ones because it's about the cheapest good enough quality ones that I would run. And it's really hard to beat the Haas ones price wise to quality because like I've gotten those on sale for like the same price as pull studs at different times. Like you'll catch a sale. I've caught sales where they've been like 60 to 70% off where I've paid like $20 to $30 a tool holder. And that's about the cheapest that I would ever want to go on those, but they've been fantastic. I do have a couple nicer quality ER1s kicking around the shop, and there is a difference, but depending on what you're doing, that may or may not matter. If I have something that's really tight or the surface finish really needs to be nice, I will try to put it in a nicer holder. And you'll notice it with your tool life as well. But I wouldn't sweat bullets over it too much in the beginning, other than like not going cheaper than Haas, Amazon, and Ali.
I have a lot of Haas tool holders. I used to have some Mari tool, but those went off with my old 1100. The I did just buy a bunch of the high end Shars ones. They're like the Tangria brand or something like that. And those were actually pretty nice, and they were a little bit cheaper than the Haas ones. So I'm pretty happy with those, and I would do it again. Where I would spend more money on is collet nuts and collets. So I
Yeah,
would be okay with going with a cheaper tool holder and just buy some extra nice collet nuts from Technics or somewhere and buy a little bit nicer collets. The Haas collets are fine, but I have noticed the run out on those isn't always as good.
they're hit and miss.
Yeah, they're hit or miss. So I like Technics collets. Those seem to be a good balance of high quality and cheap. The Shars Tengu or whatever they are tool holders I found to be pretty good. And get them from Amazon not from Amazon, from eBay, not directly through Shars. They were cheaper. I got like a 4-pack of them. Actually, I bought like 3 or 4 4-packs of them from eBay, and that was the cheapest way to do that. If you must go with Amazon or AliExpress, buy like twice as many as you need, then inspect them and then return the bad ones. Like sort them, figure out the top, 50% in terms of run out and then return the other ones. Maybe do that on Amazon and not AliExpress. I think it'd be harder on AliExpress, but with Amazon, you could do that. I mean, if you're going for a more expensive tool holder, I think you don't go with ER. Despite RegoFix like being the ones who, I guess he didn't say ER call. He did say tool holders in general. And I guess I'm only talking about ERs here, but like even though RegoFix invented the ER call it, like I would never buy theirs because if I'm going to buy something from Rego, I'm just going to get Power Grip. And like,
Well, we actually do got a couple ER collets from RegoFix, and they're pretty nice. Like I'll save those for tight tolerance stuff.
I don't know. Like I don't know. I would get Power Grips from Rego and I'd get ER collets from Haas Tools or whatever. And if you
Rego.
need nicer tool holder, like if you need shrink fit or you need, hydraulic or whatever, then I would spend more money. But like just buy a bunch of cheap ER ones and then have nicer tool holders for nicer occasions.
Yeah, and I will say, like, you can see a big difference on the run out if you pay attention to it and do good and get nicer stuff. Because I've had whole tools that have lasted 5 hours and then 20 hours or 15 hours, and it's purely has to do with how well the run out is whenever I set up the tool.
and clean them.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest difference I made. Like I now have a cleaning process for my tools.
Yep.
They get ultrasonics, they get blown off, they get oiled. And even if I'm just replacing the tool, like if I just break one, I grab a brand new tool holder that's already been cleaned. I stick the old one in the ultrasonic, and I build up the new tool, and it makes a surprisingly big difference, especially with the small stuff.
Oh yeah,
because one grain of grit inside that collet can screw up your run out, especially if you're using super tiny stuff.
Definitely.
I'm disappointed that this next question got spell checked, but it says from Dylan at Got Chips. How do you guys go about troubleshooting chatter?
I mean, it depends on the scenario, but I mean, there's a lot of different techniques. So and sometimes you do the opposite of what you normally do. Like sometimes slowing down SFM is enough. Sometimes you got to speed up. Same with your feed rate. Sometimes slowing down fixes it. Sometimes speeding up fixes it. Like I feel like I've done everything, and it just depends on the particular feature you're measuring, and if it's mill or lathe. Like you can have different instances where you need to do it depending on what you're doing there. The first thing I do though is I probably try to slow things down in general. Very rarely do I try to default to speeding things up. Although speeding things up sometimes does work. So I don't know. I don't have like a magic bullet for that particular one. Do you have anything that like has worked consistently for you?
I think I'm fairly consistent in what I do, which is okay. So machine goes squeak. First thing I do is I turn down the spindle override a little bit, see if that helps. If that doesn't help, I turn it back to 100%, then I increase the feed. And if that doesn't help, I generally go back to cam and lower the step down.
Okay.
Those are kind of, that's my normal process. And check the tool path at this point to make sure there's nothing weird going on.
Yeah. And sometimes it means you need to replace your tool too. I've had that happen where it's just the tool's dulled enough that depending on what the cut I'm doing, it'll start to chatter.
With a big production job I had the opposite issue where if the tool was too sharp, it would chatter.
And really?
After like an hour of runtime, it would sound great.
That's funny. Kind of break that edge in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Adjusting your depth of cut is generally the easiest tweak to make in your tool path.
That's true.
Because like if you adjust SFM, it adjusts a bunch of things. Like it also changes your feed per tooth or your feed rate. But like, or you could change your optimal load, and that changes a bunch of things too. It changes like your chip thinning and stuff like. But if you just change your depth of cut, the only thing you're doing is changing the amount of horsepower required for the cut and the amount of rigidity the machine needs for the cut.
I will say though that if you're doing a high efficiency milling strategy, if you reduce,
you
need more depth of cut. Like I've run into that where reducing it actually brings in chatter versus eliminating it, because you really need to you really need to at the minimum have 2 flutes engaged to do a high efficiency without chatter. So especially true on the larger your tool is, the more that is true. It seems like, at least with my experience. Like as I go to a larger tool, you have to make sure you have more than 1 flute engaged because it vibrates the whole machine. Can't dampen it out as easily.
How do you approach machining a new material?
Typically, I like to start where the manufacturer recommends, unless it seems crazy. And then I will typically drop everything down by 20%. And if that still seems crazy, I'll keep going. Like I have like a comfort. It's kind of a feel thing, but generally, if the diameter of the tool is larger, I am more willing to bring things down significantly because the cost of failure is higher. And so if it's a smaller tool, like a 1/4 inch, I'm pretty good at just running a quarter inch or smaller. I'm pretty much going to run the manufacturer's recommendations no matter what. As the tool gets larger and there's more forces involved, especially with my past SVM trials by spindle failure, I do not run things at what they recommend 90% of the time, just because as I get bigger than quarter inch, 3/8 maybe. That's where I start to anything half inch or larger. I'm pretty much always slowing things down a little bit from what they recommend, and usually I try to slow it down via SFM first, and then chip load second, and then depth. Well, it would be depth, SFM, chip load. Those are kind of the three things that I will play with. Usually not optimum load, but sometimes maybe.
Yeah. I mean, there's not that many different classes of materials. Like at this point, I've pretty much machined, one of everything, with the one exception being Inconel. I've never touched Inconel, but when I went out to the East Coast, Matt at Scott Tool sent me home with a little bit of it. So I'll get to play with something. I'll make, I don't know, some dice or something out of it just to see what it's like to cut. But other than that, like, okay, there's different grades of stainless that I've never touched before. There's some different alloy steels that I haven't cut. I did some bronze for the first time the other day. There's different plastics, but like, bronze is, kind of halfway between brass and steel. So I just kind of, started with my steel speeds and feeds and worked my way up. If it's a weird stainless, I'm just going to start running it as, 316. And then if I can go faster, I'll go faster. If it's something really wild, maybe I start with my titanium speeds and feeds and then slowly work your way up. With plastic, it's just kind of full send anyway. Like, I don't know, there's not that much weird out there. Like maybe zirconium or magnesium where you have to worry about fire, but for the most part, just start conservative and work your way up.
Yeah. On some of those materials like stainless, you don't want to go too if the material can work hardened, you don't want to go too light or you'll put heat into your part and then you'll have work hardening issues. So you do need to be a little bit aware of what the material's failure modes are to try to avoid that.
Yeah.
Like the guy that came and visited our shop who'd been in the industry forever, he's never been comfortable with stainless and he's been doing it for so many years. And so he basically only machines 303 because 304 scares him. And I'd cut 304 over 303 any day of the week. I almost prefer 304 at this point. And like I view it as no different than 303 when I'm machining. But I use a lot of high feed, high efficiency milling strategies, and I don't think that guy was. So
yeah. I like when I teach this stuff, I teach that the material gets to choose the SFM, the tool gets to choose the feed per tooth. And so like, there's going to be a range where that tool's happy. And you get, if it's aluminum, you get a lot more wiggle room about that feed per tooth than you do if it's stainless. But as long as you don't violate the minimum or the maximum on the feed per tooth, like just slow down your SFM. And generally you can't run too slow SFM.
Actually, I know for a fact this guy is not doing CAD CAM and is basically running everything on like a manual machine, or he's hand coding at the very least. Because I asked him what SFMs he runs stainless at, and he's like, I have no idea. I only know RPMs.
Yeah, that's a good sign of a manual machinist.
Like, so.
Are we ready to make the comments angry? Hot take.
Go for it.
Manual machining does not teach you speeds and feeds. CNC machining teaches you speeds and feeds. Because with manual machining, if it starts to squeal or whatever, you just start cranking a little less fast. And there's not really like any
data.
Like there's not enough control or like direct consequences to really give you a good understanding. But with CNC, you have to get it right the first time. Yeah. And, machinists think in terms of RPM and maybe in terms of, at least, especially on a mill, in terms of IPM, because your DRO might say IPM. But that doesn't matter. What matters is your SFM and your feed per tooth.
Yeah.
And if you don't understand that, like you don't know speeds and feeds.
Mm-hmm.
Manual lathes are maybe a little bit different because a lot of times you do, like if you have an engine lathe, you can set them in terms of IPR. And, you kind of just hit the power feed and it goes. But yeah, I don't think manual machining teaches speeds and feeds very well. Comment below. I've heard them all before. I'll hear them all again.
Feeds and speeds resources pre-tool.
Oh, hey, look, that wasn't even a intentional speeds and feeds talk.
Yeah, that's the next thing.
Yeah, so all of my speeds and feeds at this point started in pre-tool, and I maybe tweak them occasionally, but most of the time I don't, because generally the pre-tool speeds and feeds are on the conservative side, and I just send them. And maybe I could speed up by 50% or whatever, but I don't care.
I usually don't use pre-tool. I usually just go to the range. Like my top thing is I'll try to use the manufacturer's recommendations first, and then just see how it reacts and tweak from there.
Yeah, I just send pre-tool. They're good enough. To Harrison, if you could only keep one of your 5-axis setups, are you keeping the vertical with the trunnion or the UMC?
That's a good question. They're kind of serving two different roles right now. My UMC makes me more money than my VF, but it's because it's running production constantly in the background and it just runs and cranks. I haven't used my UMC a whole lot for job shop work, but I will say if I was using the UMC for a job shop work, I would probably want a secondary machine to support it. Reason being, with the UMC, you only have the table. And so you can do 3-axis work on it, but you're going to be like if you have like an op1 and an op2 with soft jaws, you'd either have to have two different vices or a 0-point switch system and be switching them out constantly. And all that stuff is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with any of that. But what I love about my VF3 with the trunnion and the table is I have two vices and the trunnion. And so as long as the part can fit on the trunnion, I have an op0, an op1, and an op2, and I can single piece flow almost anything through that machine. And so if I'm doing a one-off or if I'm doing 30, I can set it up a workflow where every time the machine opens, I'm getting a finished part out. And it's not as easy to do that on the UMC. Although from a 5-axis perspective, if I was choosing purely just to have a 5-axis machine, the UMC is a lot easier to use. There's a lot less that can go out of whack just through daily use than there is with the trunnion. Like I'm much more comfortable programming for the UMC and pushing things on that than I am on my other machine. But the other machine is a lot more flexible overall. So if I was using the UMC for job shop stuff, I feel like I'd want to have a second machine to be able to flow parts easier. Or I'd be constantly changing out vices or have to come up with some really funky work holding solutions to make it work single piece flow. Like it wouldn't be as easy.
Does your UMC have that place where you can bolt a vice at like B90?
It does, but your parts, you have to have a really thin vice and really short parts to make use of it. And
okay, that makes sense.
And then it's really hard unless you have some sort of a system like Lang with their stamp vice to ignore that op0 work. Your op0 work is almost always 3-axis to like dovetail it or to do any type of cutting on that before you stick it in the 5-axis. And so you really like have two vices, one for your op0 and one for your op2, unless you're doing it as a tabbing method, which you can do, and I do it, but I find that most of the times I don't mess with tabs and I just use the other vice, and then it's just a lot more reliable.
I always assumed that side mounting position was so you could do an op0.
Yeah.
And not much more.
Yeah, an op0, yeah, but I mean, usually your op0, that's when your part has the most mass, and depending on the height of your part, it's also when it's the tallest. And
it's this problem where I just don't think about how big parts are because they're all this big.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Like if you can hold the part without an op0, which you can most of the times, but depends on how much you're sticking out and how much you want to hold on to it by. So if you avoid that and potentially, use thicker material so you don't have to do like really small carrier stock, you can avoid the op0, and then you could use that for an op2, and you could do it in 2 ops and you could flow. But typically I'm setting my UMC up with the robot, I'm flowing parts that way with op 1 and op 2, which you could technically do the same setup for regular work, just have two different vices in there. The nice thing about the robot system is that it pulls the jaws out, and so I have a little bit more clearance around my parts, and the vices are at an angle. I don't know. I just feel like if for the job shop work, I would take the VF3 for production work. At least the setup I have, I would prefer the UMC for that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. So UMC for production, the VF3 for prototyping or job shop stuff.
Yeah.
What
It's a Swiss Army knife.
what about if you had like a Tormod 1500, a bare bones one sitting next to your UMC?
Yeah, then I'd do that 100%. Like if you're just talking like pure 5-axis, I would go UMC every time. Like if you're just talking about I want a nice 5-axis machine, I'm going to default to that. I don't like having to mess with the trunnion. I don't like if it gets bumped having to, or like if it moves at all for whatever reason, having to realign it. Knock on wood, that hasn't happened for a very long time to me because I've kind of gotten a good workflow with it. But it's a pain in the butt when it does, to get everything relined up. So
if you could only have one machine, you would take a VF3 plus a trunnion. But as you're more set up for flowing work through, you would take a UMC as long as you have a 3-axis somewhere else in your shop.
Yep, pretty much.
That makes sense.
So, and a UMC could be a really good single machine on its own, but I've never had to deal with that. Like all the job shop work that I've done on the UMC, I've only done it for the 5-axis portion, and the op 0 if it needed it, or an op 2 if it needed it, I've done it on the other machines. And I've purely only used the UMC for 5-axis.
I feel like you would just drop a pneumatic shunt or something on there.
Yeah.
Just so it's easy to pop on and off vices.
Yeah. But it would be like if you only had one Aroa location in your machine, and that was it.
I mean, that's basically how I run it, except I have one that's sideways.
Yeah, I know, but like if that was the only thing you had, that's basically how you would treat it. And so it's just if you're trying to run a lot of parts through and you're trying to do single piece flow, for small parts and small vices, it's not that big a deal. But as they get bigger, unloading and reloading those different vices would kill your back over time.
That's what I was about to say, is my single piece flow method works because I can pick up my vice like this with 2 fingers and, drop in the next one. And all 3 of my vices sitting on the table take up 8 inches. It's not, if I had,
So imagine doing your workflow with that Tormach 5-inch or 6-inch vice.
You just wouldn't do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be unsustainable.
Yeah. So changing out that every single time, popping it on and off with your part, it would just suck.
Yeah. You would still end up doing batch work.
Yeah. You'd run all op 1s and all op 2s. Yeah. And it's totally a viable method. But if there's any problem, you got all that batch work. So at the bare minimum, if you do it that way, run one part all the way through, prove everything out, and then do your batch.
Or do batches of 10 or 20 or whatever.
Yeah, something. So, but yeah, the VF it's just so convenient to be able to do basically anything I want on it. And then if I want to do 3-axis work on it, it's really easy to do. I have more space. I can do bigger parts, 3-axis, and just smaller parts, 5-axis. And it flows well with the parts that I run on a regular basis. Typically, my smaller parts are more 5-axis and my larger parts are more 3-axis. So I get the benefit of both out of that machine. So
makes sense.
But I like the UMC and just as a 5-axis machine more than the VF. Have I beaten that horse?
I believe you've beaten it with a dead horse.
Okay. Anything else?
Is that what you got? I feel like I had some or some other thought that came up and I've lost it now. I think we talked at the end of last year about setting goals. We're both
Ah,
kind of like, I don't know. And for I remember what I was
did,
going to bring up. It wasn't this. Well, it was kind of related to this.
did we
For
do it?
Audacity, I'm like, whatever. But
Okay.
for Subtract, I've gone ahead and set our goals for this year. So we have revenue goals up through the end of the year. Actually, we have revenue goals past the end of the year. We have a YouTube subs goal, and I have like my priorities. And all of these are in a locked Discord channel in the Subtract Discord so that anyone can see them, and like as things change or whatever, I can just update them. So there's the AJ's Billboard channel now that has our finance targets, our sub goals and priorities, and I'll just like every month or whatever change those to see what we did versus the goal.
Yeah. We have our goals for the year, and I'm still trying to figure out the best way to communicate financial goals to my employee and or future employees. Do I just give them the big overall target number? Do I give them a weekly, monthly number? Or do I go over everything and be an open book? How much do you share and how much do you hold and all that kind of fun stuff?
I mean, I have opinions on this. Do you want my opinions?
Yeah, what's your opinions?
Share everything.
Share
Like,
everything.
yeah. And in addition to that, I would reward based on business performance.
Yep.
There is a book that's called like The Great Game of Business, I believe, or something like that, where it kind of goes through this a little bit more. But yeah, I'm a fan of employees need to benefit from the profits of the company. They need to understand where the profits come from and like how they're gotten,
Mm-hmm.
and otherwise they're not going to care about expenses and stuff.
Yep.
And I think I need to be pretty clear. Obviously, there's some things that I would omit from that, such as like, Joe makes $37 an hour and you make 25. Like
Yeah.
that would not get shared. But in terms of like, we spend $96 a month on toilet paper. Yeah, that can be public knowledge.
Yeah. We spent, I don't mind sharing this. We spent last year, I think 80 or 90 grand on tooling alone. And tooling, work holding, like that all falls in the same category, but it was a lot higher number than I was expecting.
Yeah. I think I made 80 or 90 grand last year.
Yeah.
Including teaching.
Yeah.
Actually, I believe the number was 86 grand. But I don't know. My philosophy is always openness. Like I have a YouTube video from last year about how much money the company was making. I intend on doing that again, though I've kind of missed the New Year mark by 2 months. And I'm fine with employees knowing everything. The one thing that I haven't decided on is should my little AJ's billboard with our goals be visible to the vendors? Because right now it's only the admin team. I don't know. I guess I don't really have an argument against it.
Yeah.
Other than like just providing more info than they need, and it's just confusion. And
Yeah, it kind of is the same reason you provide it to your employees, though. It makes sure everyone's on the same page. Everyone kind of knows what the direction the company's trying to go.
yeah,
Uh,
I would talk with Jacob about that first. But really, actually, my argument for not showing it to the vendors is our net profit right now is not high because we spend all the money growing.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to see that and be like, oh, they lost $500 this month. Even though they took in, 12,000. But like that's kind of intended.
Yeah.
So that's the only confusion that I could see.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of being as open as possible with my employees. Like that was the original goal. How to structure it, present it, and keep up with it, that's something I haven't really locked in more than anything.
Read The Great Game of Business or whatever it's called.
Yeah. Because I think was it Profit First or the Pumpkin Plan? One of those two, I feel like talked about making everything open to the employees as well. So, but and I think that will be the ultimate direction we go. I just got to figure out how often. Is it just once a year? Is it once a quarter? Is it every week? Like I got to figure out where we present that stuff and what format.
Yeah. I think in that book they like basically just post, I think, quarterly or monthly P&Ls, and they teach a class like every year on how to read a P&L and what it means. And then
Mm-hmm.
they have a bonus structure based on that. Again, I'm a big fan of.
Yep. So
I mean, like right now, we don't really have any of that in place, but like Jacob has equity. So, right now Subtract is worth nothing, but someday it will be. And so that's kind of his bonus for it. Scott and Pablo don't have any equity, but they don't work a whole lot of hours. I don't think expect that by any means.
yep.
So
And we also have business goals as well, like growing the edition, equipment, stuff like that.
yeah.
Which for Subtract, is all your goals just like software related? Or is there any other stuff besides that?
All of my goals are, well, okay, I guess I technically have a YouTube subs goal, but mostly what I work on is finance based.
Gotcha.
Jacob has some like technology goals. Oh, and our quality goal: 0 defects, 0 rejects. That's our goal for 2026. So we had one. Well, no, we had 2. I accidentally lied in the email we sent out. We had 2 parts rejected in 2025. One was a badly installed helicoil. The other one, which was my fault, was shipping damage. So we had 2 parts rejected in 2015. So I think in my newsletter I said 99.8% acceptance rate. That should have been, I guess, 99.6% acceptance rate. And in 2026 we're going to hit 100% acceptance.
We just had one of our first rejections from one of our customers this week, but it might be because of an interesting problem that I need to look into. So, question for the Instagram community, and this is my theory. Typically, we do a lot of our tight tolerance features on the machine just to check that the bores and things are done to spec. However, this particular part had extremely thin walls, and I think with the orientation of the part, half of those walls were incredibly thin on the orientation of probing. And so I think when it probes, it does the first 2 probes to get it centered in the hole, and the second 2 probes is actually what it's using to measure the diameter. That's my theory. And I'm curious if that is true. Like if you just use the default measure bore in like with the Fusion.
This is on the CMM, not in your machine, right?
No, this is on my machine. We didn't put it on the CMM because it wasn't tight enough to need it, nor was the customer paying for it or expecting it.
Machine for a measurement?
Yeah, we do it all the time.
I didn't know you guys were doing that.
We do it all the time.
Oh, not automated.
Yeah, like if we're just running a one-off part and it's not a tight enough tolerance that it would need to be done on the CMM, within like 1,000, then we just use the machine. And it was off by like 3 or 4,000. And so I'm thinking that it came out as an oval shaped, and the direction that we were measuring it was fine, that he was using to calibrate everything, but the wall was was pulling in, and so the sides were blowing out. And so the probe would measure the further out measurement first just to find center line, and then do the other measurement, and it would be in spec.
I have a different theory.
What's that?
You measured it in a constrained state, and then you loosened the vise.
No.
You didn't? Okay.
We had very little material at the bottom, and we machined out everything and cut the hole while it was oblong. And so what I'm thinking is happening is that when it did the hole, um, it pushed the wall out, and so it would bend back in and come in undersized. But the parts that
Okay.
were still constrained, it
Yeah.
would actually cut. And so whenever we would probe it, it would be off. So, and off by a pretty significant amount. So I did not run those parts. Those were run by our employee. And so I told him, because of how thin those walls are, and he did everything the way we had taught him to, but it was just, I think, a weird geometry that he hadn't run into yet. I would probably cut that hole with leaving the stock around it first, just to make sure it came out perfectly square and you weren't fighting the material deflection as much. It would make the hole go not circular after you machine the outside, though. And so that was kind of a tough one that I was trying to figure out. This would be another good question. If you have thin walls and somewhat of a tight feature, and you're worried about your circle going to an oval, do you cut it with all of the material around it where it's structurally sound and can cut a perfect circle? And then when you do the outside, it has the potential to potato chip in. But when you go to install your bearing in it or whatever you're putting in it, it'll push out to the right size depending on what you're doing. Or do you do it in the floppy state, and do you have to make a program that actually cuts it, or use like a boring head or some other process to try to make sure it comes out perfectly circular?
So this is something I deal a lot with because I do a lot of plastics. And we're going to assume that you're not losing so much rigidity like during this process that you have problems with that. But assuming that's not an issue, I do a pre-finishing pass. So I will, rough pre-finish both of them and then final finish both of them. That way you're only removing a couple thou at the last step.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, it was out by like 3 or 4 thou. Like, it's potato chipping. Doing thin isn't gonna resolve it. At least using an inbuilt, and this was 304 stainless steel.
But it was
So
potato chipping because of material movement, right?
yes, because the outside has been moved away, and then the outer wall, I think, is bending out of the way.
Outer wall is not rigid enough, or
Yeah, it's not rigid enough.
okay. Well, like I said, my assumption is that like for this to work, everything has to be rigid enough for you to be able to machine it twice.
Let me give you a little bit more context. The part in question is probably about 1.5 inches tall. It's probably about 1.5 inches wide, and it's a rectangle with one end having the full circle of the width of the material, and the thin part around it is probably about a 16th of an inch to an eighth inch, somewhere in that ballpark range, thickness on the outer edge. It's basically the full depth of the part.
I I don't know. I would probably go back with maybe a smaller tool. Be my inclination. Like if you roughed it with a half inch, go back with like a long reach 1/4 inch, so there's less tool pressure.
Yeah, that might help.
But pre-finish, like doing a semi-finish and then a finishing tool path helps a lot when your material is moving.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you have material that wants the potato chip up, like something long and thin, and so you like deck it and then you flip it and then you deck it and then you flip it and then you deck it and then you flip it and then you make your part.
Yeah. Yeah. But even then, I don't, yeah, I don't know. I feel like a boring head would probably be the best because it's such a low point load. That's probably the right answer. We don't have one of those yet. Although that's just another reason to get one. But I feel like that's probably the right answer because it takes that, instead of going to a smaller diameter, it takes all of your forces down to a single point. So there would be basically no deflection.
You can also just turn on like repeat finishing passes and just
No, it just
run
work
it like
hardens.
4 times.
It work
I guess
hardens.
you're talking stainless.
Yeah. That's the problem is that it'll cause it to deflect more, and you just make the other part of the hole bigger that's rigid. So I think boring head's the right answer, my gut telling me. And without it, I think in this particular application, I know more. I think if we machined it and did the hole and got the hole to side, and then if it potato chipped after the fact, we remove the outside, that it wouldn't matter because when they go to put the internal part, it'll open up in the right shape, especially with how thin the walls are.
Yeah.
So I don't think
It's a
it'll
flexure. It's a feature.
Yeah,
It's
basically.
not a bug.
So that's my theory. Although I will say one way we're going to try to catch this on the next part, if we're still measuring inside the machine, is take more points around the circle. And I found a toolpath in Fusion for probing where we're like trying to measure the circularity with the machine, and it'll take multiple points all the way around. So, and then average it out and give us the actual circle size. And we're also going to check it with a hand bore gauge. And if we need to, we'll put it on the CMM, but I'm going to try to avoid that unless it's absolutely necessary.
This is like approximately 1.5 inch diameter, you said?
Yeah, approximately.
So not gauge pins.
Not gauge pins. Yeah. So it's basically it's a rectangular block that holds a bearing that has a couple bolt holes in the top face. So you imagine something that gets slapped onto the side of something else and just holds a bearing. Basically all it is. So that's it, guys. So we have kind of snaked our way through this podcast, and now it's come to a close. We've talked about everything.
Forgot something. We forgot something. My weight update. So I started at 289. I am now 273.6, down 15.4.
Jeez, that's a big drop.
I'm making progress. I started really fast, so I think it's normal for diets. I dropped really fast, and now it's kind of leveled out to a more kind of comfortable rate.
That's still a pretty big drop, pretty quick. So impressive.
So keep it up. 220.
220. Yeah.
I did make that goal when I was using my old scale that said I was 260. I got my new scale that made me like 20 pounds heavier, and now I'm not sure if I should reconsider that goal or not. But that's my goal, and I guess.
All right, guys. After that detour yet again.
But wait. What about the last thing? Wait. How are they going to know who we are unless you say our names?
I am AJ, and this is Harrison with
Zonum Precision.
With Zonum Audacity Ingenuity. Anyways, guys, thanks for hanging out. Please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, and we'll catch you guys later. I saw some funny comments about telling your neighbor, and I was going to say something about it, and I don't remember what it was, but apparently one of you was going to tell your neighbor, and I appreciate it. And I saw that comment. So
now you need to tell your neighbor's neighbor, like not you, but like your neighbor-in-law.
No, because if that neighbor starts listening, then they just tell their neighbor. It just grows naturally. True. So like it becomes that neighbor's responsibility to pass it on to the next one. It's a pyramid scheme. You tell one person, that person tells someone else, that person tells someone else. Come on, AJ. You've started enough companies. You know how this works.
Pyramid scheme was number 22, if I remember correctly.
Okay, there we go.
Speaking of which, would you like to buy some toothpaste or find a friend to buy some toothpaste?
No, I got a bunch of essential oils I'm trying to get rid of.
Okay. I don't know why I'm with toothpaste, but it seems like a thing a pyramid scheme would do. Ready for a song? Does that mean we're done? The song ended?